Good morning, welcome back to the program right here on Channel 18 Outside Television. Once again, this spot's going to be brought to you by Cooper Creek Square, Grand County's only outdoor shopping and dining center. It's going to be home to the free parking garage as well as the free, or access to the free bus service that we have here in town. So pretty awesome location right here in downtown Winter Park. Our first guest here is Martin J. Smith, author of 9 books now, 5 novels, and then 4 nonfiction. Correct. Is that how that's considered?
That's correct.
And one of them, The Wild Duck Chase, a nonfiction book here, was recently made into a feature-length documentary by Animal Planet. So pretty awesome story, and we'll talk about that a little later in the program. But before we get too into it, what made you pick Grand County? You just moved here, I want to say, just about a year now. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
I've been here since May 2016, 17.
Yeah. I'm still having a hard time with year.
Sorry, yeah. 2016. I guess the story goes back about 20 years. My sister, Lisa Wren, moved up here from Phoenix, Arizona, and built a house out at Ouray Ranch in Granby. And my wife and I co-invested in the place with her. She lived here for the last almost 20 years, but unfortunately she passed away in September of 2015, and the house sat empty all winter, and my wife and I thought about it and just decided that was the universe telling us it was time to come to Grand County. And it wasn't a hard sell. We've been coming here for 20 years.
So you've been coming to visits, and I assume you've got to be doing a little fishing out there, because that's a beautiful fishing area.
Doing some fishing, doing some biking and skiing in the winter, and thoroughly enjoyed it. And knew this is where we wanted to end
So you had
up.
never heard of Grand County until your sister had kind of found it and got a place up here.
And what's not to like? I mean, like I said, we've been coming up here for almost 20 years. My kids learned to drive on the ranch roads. So we've got a pretty deep bond here, but we've only been here permanently since May.
And you're a journalist. I mean, you are a writer by trade. You've been writing for how long now? About 40 years?
Oh gosh, since graduated from Penn State in 1978 and started working my way from small newspapers up to bigger newspapers. I worked in Southern California for the last 31 years. First for the Orange County Register, then for the Los Angeles Times Magazine.
So these are big publications here.
Yep.
This isn't the Sky High News that we have local here. I mean,
which I love, by the way.
Yeah, they do a great job, but our market's a little smaller, but the LA Times is...
No, I felt privileged to be able to dance on the big stage for a while.
So may I ask, what are you writing in the paper? You know, are you covering stories for them, or?
Well, at the LA Times Magazine, I was the senior editor and ultimately acting editor for a couple of years. I commissioned stories from other writers. I wrote some myself. I, in fact, wrote a cover piece in the magazine in, I believe, 2005 after the bulldozer incident in Granby.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which brought me up here again to do some reporting. I had the privilege of working with a lot of very talented writers, developing stories with them, and writing some myself as well. And then for the last 10 years, I've been editor of Orange Coast Magazine in Orange County, which is a monthly magazine very similar to 5280 in Denver. And then thoroughly enjoyed that. But I was ready to move on in May, and we were happy to be here.
So not to go back too far here, but you covered the bulldozer incident, which happened back in 2004, I want to say.
Right.
So was that a national? Were you writing that for the national?
It was a national story. There's no question about it. I knew, because my sister was here, and I knew Granby fairly well. I came up and wrote a cover piece in the LA Times Magazine that kind of looked at how, not so much the incident itself, but how the guy who perpetrated that incident was adopted by the Patriot movement as a martyr. Here's a guy who struck a blow against government, when in fact it was just kind of a local personal dispute and zoning problem. It was not a grand conspiracy against the government, and yet that's how
William Wallace going down or anything.
Yeah, that was how how it was interpreted by people who had an agenda that needed a martyr. And so I wrote about that and found that a very interesting story.
That's, you see that from time to time nationally. Sometimes you just need a martyr to adopt, whether it was actually one or not.
He didn't really fit the bill, but that's okay. They adopted him anyway.
That's been quite a legendary story around these parts. I still remember being home just on a little break and flip on CNN or something else, and it's live coverage. Granby, Colorado. I was like, what? You know, I knew how big this county is. It's not very big in the month of May. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll talk a little more about, I'd like to talk more about the wild duck chase there and the story you're kind of writing about.
Happy to do it.
All right, once again, we're talking to Martin J. Smith right here on Channel 18 Outside Television. We'll be back in a moment.